The galaxy taught war as an art. Humans learned it as a survival skill. Commander Threll of the Vorthin Strategic Command had seen 300 cycles of military training, 300 cycles of molding the galaxy's finest into proper soldiers, 300 cycles of predictable, orderly, sensible military education. And then the humans showed up. Now, you have to understand something. The Vorthin Military Academy wasn't some backwater training ground for planetary defense forces. No. This was the institution. 27 species sent their best and brightest to learn from us. We taught strategy, tactics, combined arms operations, fleet coordination. We taught warfare as an art form, a science, a beautiful dance of calculated moves and counter-moves. The humans? Well, the humans had other ideas. The academy sprawled across the northern continent of Vorthas Prime, a masterpiece of architectural efficiency and military precision. Gleaming towers of crystalline metal reached toward our 3 moons, while training grounds stretched for kilometers in every direction. Combat simulators, tactical centers, firing ranges, zero-gravity arenas, everything a proper military mind could desire. I stood in my office that morning, reviewing the incoming class roster. Impressive as always. The Krell had sent a honor-born warrior, already decorated in 2 minor conflicts. The Systrix delegation included a tactical prodigy who had scored perfectly on every entrance examination. Even the typically peaceful Minari had contributed a cadet whose strategic simulations had become case studies at other institutions. And then, at the bottom of the list, 3 names that would haunt my next 6 months. Jack Reeves, Nina Cross, Tom Brightwell, humans, from Earth. The new species. The ones who had barely achieved faster than light travel 40 cycles ago and had somehow convinced the Galactic Assembly that they deserved a seat at the table. My secondary eyes squinted at the attached files. Decent physical scores. Adequate intelligence ratings. Nothing exceptional. Nothing that explained why the Assembly had specifically requested their inclusion in our program. I should have known then. Should have asked more questions. Should have done literally anything except shrug my 4 shoulders and assume it would be fine. Narrator voice. It was not fine. They arrived on a transport with the Minari delegation, and I knew immediately something was wrong. The Minari cadet, Solix, stepped off the ramp with appropriate reverence, his crest feathers arranged in the traditional respect configuration. Behind him came the humans, and they were laughing, at a military academy, during formal arrival ceremonies. While representatives from 24 species stood at attention, Jack Reeves, tall by human standards with dark skin and darker eyes, was apparently finishing some kind of story. Nina Cross, shorter and stockier with pale skin and bright red hair, was doubled over with amusement. Tom Brightwell, average height with brown hair and a face that seemed permanently stuck in a smirk, was shaking his head. I'm just saying, Jack was saying, completely oblivious to the stares. If the ambassador had actually read the briefing about not eating the ceremonial flowers, he ate 7 of them. Nina wheezed. 7. Before anyone could stop him. Were they not food? Tom asked. Deadpan. They were on plates. I cleared my throats. All 4 of them. The universal signal for attention among my people. The humans looked up, made eye contact, and then, instead of snapping to attention like any properly trained military personnel, they waved. Hey there, Jack called out. You must be Commander Threll. Great to meet you, sir. Sorry we're a bit punchy from the journey. 36-hour jump does weird things to your head. I stared at them. Around me I could feel the other instructors staring at them. The other cadets were staring at them. This, I said slowly, is a military institution. We have protocols, procedures, standards of conduct. Right, absolutely, Nina said, straightening up. Sorry, Commander. Where do we need to be? Formation. With the other cadets. 5th row, positions 14 through 16. They moved to comply, and I watched them go with a growing sense of dread. The Krell cadet, Thornak, edged slightly away from them as they took their positions. The Systrix prodigy, Civix, made a small hissing sound of disapproval. The humans seemed completely unbothered. I began my standard welcome address, the same speech I had given for 300 cycles. Excellence, discipline, honor, the proud traditions of the Vorthan military, and the privilege of learning from our expertise. Halfway through I noticed Tom Brightwell was yawning. The first week should have been straightforward. Basic assessment of skills, physical conditioning, introduction to our training methodologies. Simple stuff. The Krell dominated the strength tests, naturally. Thornak could lift roughly 4 times what any other species managed, and his armored hide made him nearly impervious to standard training weapons. The Sistrix excelled at speed and precision, civics moving through obstacle courses like liquid mercury. The humans were fine, just fine. Jack had decent endurance. Nina showed good hand-eye coordination. Tom demonstrated adequate tactical thinking in the basic strategy games. Nothing special. Nothing that explained their presence here. I started to relax. Perhaps this would be manageable after all. Perhaps they would simply be average students who would pass through the program without incident. Narrator voice. You know that thing where everything seems fine right before it all goes catastrophically wrong? Yeah. The first real indication came during standard formation drills. Every cadet learns to move as a unit to maintain position, to execute commands with precision. It's fundamental, essential, the bedrock of all military operations. Column formation, I barked. Execute. 24 cadets snapped into perfect alignment. 3 humans sort of shambled into approximately the right positions. Tighter spacing, humans. They adjusted, but there was something wrong about it. They moved efficiently, yes, but without the crispness, the exactness that proper military bearing required. Reeves, your posture is incorrect. Is it? Jack looked down at himself. I mean, I'm standing, weapon ready. I can see threats from all angles. What's wrong with it? It's not regulation stance. Okay, but why is regulation stance better than this stance? I felt a migraine forming behind my primary eyes. Because it is the correct stance. The stance proven effective through countless campaigns. Proven effective for what, though? Nina chimed in. Because if we're talking about looking good in parades, sure, regulation is great, but if something actually jumps out at us, I want my weight distributed like this. She demonstrated a looser, more fluid posture. Nothing is going to jump out at you during formation drill, right? But if we train one way and fight another way, doesn't that seem inefficient? Tom added helpfully. I assigned them all extra conditioning. They jogged away, still talking among themselves, completely missing the point. The close quarters combat simulation was a standard exercise. We used it to teach cadets proper engagement protocols in confined spaces, rules of escalation, appropriate use of force. The scenario was simple. A diplomatic incident at a space station bar, drunk civilians becoming aggressive. Cadets needed to restore order without causing an interstellar incident. The Krell approach was direct, but controlled. Thornak used his size to intimidate, separated combatants, contained the situation, textbook execution. I gave him a 92% score. The Sistrix method was elegant. Civics used speed to disarm threats, pressure points to immobilize aggressors, psychological tactics to de-escalate. Beautiful to watch. 95%. Then came the humans. Jack entered the simulation first. The holographic drunk took a swing at him. And instead of the clean block and restrain technique we taught, Jack did something that made every instructor in the observation room sit up straight. He didn't block. He didn't dodge. He moved forward, inside the punch, drove his elbow into the holographic throat, followed with a knee to the midsection, and when the hologram doubled over, grabbed the back of its head and slammed it into the bar counter. 3 seconds. The drunk was unconscious on the floor. Said Lieutenant Kiruk, one of my assistant instructors. That was excessive. I finished. Highly excessive. The objective was de-escalation, not. On the screen, a second holographic aggressor approached Jack from behind with a bottle. Jack somehow sensed it without turning around, spun, caught the wrist, twisted it until the bottle dropped, then swept the hologram's legs and put it face first into the floor with a knee on its spine. 6 seconds total. 2 unconscious holograms. Is he? Kiruk's tentacles were twitching nervously. Is he trying to kill them? They're holograms, I muttered. He can't kill holograms. But if they were real, we watched in horrified fascination as Jack systematically dismantled every threat in the scenario. No warnings, no attempted verbal de-escalation, just brutal, efficient violence that ended each confrontation in seconds. Nina's run was somehow worse. She used improvised weapons, everything from bar stools to drinking glasses to someone's jacket, turning the environment into an arsenal. Tom's approach was sneakier, targeting joints and pressure points we didn't even know humans were aware of. When they finished, all 3 stood in front of my desk while I tried to formulate words. That, I finally managed, was not de-escalation. Sure it was, Jack said. Everyone was very de-escalated at the end. Nobody was fighting anymore, because you incapacitated them. Right. De-escalated. That is not what that word means. Nina tilted her head. Commander, Genuine question. What did you want us to do? Use appropriate force. Verbal commands. Restraint techniques. Not whatever that was. Okay, but here's the thing, Tom said, leaning against my desk in a way that would have gotten any other cadet disciplined. If someone's already drunk and swinging at me, verbal commands aren't going to work, and restraint techniques are great if you've got backup in time, but in a real bar fight you've got maybe 2 seconds before his buddies join in, so you end the threat fast, you end it hard, and you move to the next problem. This was a diplomatic scenario. Yeah, and we didn't kill anybody, Jack pointed out. Everyone we put down would wake up with a headache. That's diplomatic, right? We could have been way less diplomatic. I stared at them. They stared back, genuinely confused about what they'd done wrong. You are supposed to win the scenario according to the parameters. We won. Bars secure. Civilians are safe. Threats neutralized. You are supposed to win elegantly. Oh, Nina said, nodding. Yeah, we don't really do elegant. We do effective. I gave them all failing grades. They seemed completely unconcerned. The war games were my pride and joy. A massive simulation where cadets commanded virtual forces against each other, demonstrating their grasp of military strategy, logistics, combined arms tactics. The Systrix team executed a brilliant flanking maneuver, using terrain to mask their movements before striking the enemy's supply lines. Elegant. Sophisticated. Exactly what we taught. The Krell team demonstrated the hammer and anvil technique, pinning the enemy against a defensive position while heavy assault units crushed them. Classic. Effective. By the book. The humans took one look at the scenario, huddled together for maybe 3 minutes, and then did something I'd never seen in 300 cycles of running this exercise. They surrendered. Just straight up sent a surrender signal to the enemy forces in the simulation. I was about to stop the exercise and fail them on the spot when I noticed the enemy AI was accepting the surrender, moving forces forward to accept the capitulation. That's when the humans triggered every mine they'd been secretly placing for the past 10 minutes, wiped out 70% of the enemy forces in one massive coordinated detonation, and then launched an all-out assault on the survivors. That is cheating. I roared into the communications channel. How is it cheating? Jack's voice came back. You said win the scenario. You didn't say we couldn't fake a surrender. Perfidious surrender is a war crime. Is it a war crime in the simulation rules? I pulled up the rulebook. It actually wasn't explicitly forbidden. Because who would even think to do that? It violates the spirit of honorable warfare, Commander, Nina said, and her voice had gone very flat, very serious. With respect, there is no such thing as honorable warfare. There's warfare you win, and warfare you lose. We'd really prefer to win. The simulation continued. The humans broke every convention, every tradition, every expectation. They booby-trapped their own wounded. They faked retreats to draw enemies into ambushes. They targeted command and control first, then logistics, then morale. They fought like the enemy was actually trying to kill them. Because, I realized with growing horror, that's how humans always fought. I called them to my office after the exercise. I needed to understand. Explain, I said, gesturing at the simulation replay frozen on my screen. It showed the moment where Tom had deliberately crashed a damaged transport into an enemy ammunition depot. Strategic sacrifice, Tom said. The transport was lost anyway, crew already evacuated. Enemy depot was too hardened for our weapons, so I used the transport as a kinetic weapon, took out their entire ammunition supply for the southern sector. You are supposed to preserve resources. I preserved my soldiers by eliminating a strategic target, at the cost of a transport we'd already lost. I just made sure it didn't go to waste. I looked at Jack, and the fake surrender saved lives. If we'd fought conventionally, we'd have taken 30% casualties. This way we took 8% and ended the battle in half the time. By lying, by being smarter than the enemy. There are rules, conventions. The Galactic Accords on Military Conduct specifically outline. Commander, Nina interrupted, and something in her tone made me stop. Can I ask you a question? Proceed. How many wars has Vortas fought in the last 1,000 cycles? I blinked all 4 eyes. 17. How many did you win? All of them, naturally. How many species were completely destroyed in those wars? That's not relevant. It's absolutely relevant. You fight wars to win territory, or resources, or political advantages. You follow rules because everyone agrees to follow rules, and at the end everyone goes home and maybe tries again later. She leaned forward. Humans don't fight wars like that. We fight wars to survive. For most of our history, when we fought, it was because if we lost, our entire civilization ended. Total destruction. Extinction. So we learned to fight in ways that make sure we don't lose. That's barbaric. Maybe, Jack said quietly. But we're still here. How many species in the galaxy can say they clawed their way up from planetary predators through 5 major extinction events, survived 2 nuclear wars, and made it to the stars? I didn't have an answer for that. You train cadets to be soldiers, Tom added. Professional military personnel who fight according to doctrines and treaties. That's great. That works in a galaxy where everyone agrees to the same rules. He met my eyes. We can't train to be soldiers. We can only train to be survivors. It's literally all we know how to do. The combined species exercise was meant to be the highlight of the training cycle. Real weapons, real terrain, live ammunition against combat drones programmed to provide realistic opposition. I assigned the humans to a mixed team with Thornak, Civics, and 2 Minari cadets. Figured the other species would keep them in check. The scenario was a hostage rescue. Enemy drones holding position in a fortified structure. Civilian holograms in danger. Extract them without casualties. Standard approach: reconnaissance, planning, coordinated assault, secure extraction route, execute. The team moved into position. Thornak took point with his heavy armor. Civics scouted the perimeter. The Minari prepared support equipment. The humans went very, very quiet. I'd learned this was a bad sign. They did follow the plan. Initially, recon was clean. Approach was textbook. Entry points identified. Everyone in position. Then the drones adapted. See, we'd upgraded the AI this cycle, made it more responsive, more challenging. The drones detected the team's positioning and shifted tactics, moving the hostages to a more defensible position, setting up crossfire lanes. Perfect opportunity to demonstrate adaptive thinking. I waited for the team to regroup, reassess, formulate a new plan. Instead, I heard Nina say quietly over the comm channel, "Jack, they're clustering. Tom, north window is exposed for 3 seconds every 40 seconds. Seen," Tom replied. "Thornak, how much do you weigh in full armor?" Jack asked. The Krell cadet sounded confused. 420 kilograms. Why? Because I need you to run straight at the main entrance in about 10 seconds. It is heavily fortified and trust me. Sprint. Full speed. Crash through. They'll focus on you. That's when we move. I was about to override the channel, to tell them to follow proper protocol when everything happened at once. Thornak charged. Every drone pivoted to the massive armored threat. Tom put a round through the north window during that 3-second exposure, taking out the drone commander. Nina tossed something that I realized too late was an improvised explosive through a ventilation shaft. Jack went through a side entrance that shouldn't have been accessible, moving in complete silence. The Minari cadets were still at the rally point, trying to follow the original plan. 15 seconds. That's how long it took the humans to completely dismantle the scenario. Drones eliminated. Hostages secured. 0 friendly casualties. But the way they'd done it, the sheer violence of it, the precision. I watched the replay, watched Jack's approach. Every step calculated for maximum cover, every movement designed to present minimal target profile. And when he encountered a drone, there was no hesitation, no mercy. Double tap to the central processor, moving before the drone even hit the ground. This wasn't training. This was muscle memory. This was instinct. These humans had done this before. For real. I pulled their service records. The real ones, not the sanitized versions the assembly had provided. Jack Reeves, 3 years in something called Marine Force Reconnaissance, 16 combat deployments, specialty direct action and special reconnaissance. Nina Cross, Army Ranger, explosives expert, 2 years in a counter-terrorism unit, 23 confirmed combat operations. Tom Brightwell, Navy SEAL. That designation made my blood run cold because I'd read about SEALs. They were the humans who did the things other humans wouldn't talk about. These weren't cadets. These were veterans. Killers, if I was being honest. And the assembly had sent them here, to our pristine military academy, to learn from us. The joke, I realized, was on me. They weren't here to learn. I watched the exercise footage again, watched how they moved, how they communicated with looks and gestures, how they turned a chaotic situation into a choreographed dance of death. Every movement had purpose. Every action had been calculated not for points, not for scores, but for ending the threat as quickly and efficiently as possible. They fought like their lives depended on it because I realized, for most of their lives had depended on it. I called them in one final time. No assistants, no observers. Just me and the 3 humans. "I owe you an apology," I said. They looked surprised. "Good. So was I. I've been trying to teach you to be soldiers. But you're already something else entirely, aren't you? Jack nodded slowly. Commander, Earths had organized warfare for about 5,000 years. Continuous, almost non-stop conflict. We've tried every strategy, every tactic, every philosophy of combat. Some worked. Most didn't. The ones that didn't work, those people died and their ideas died with them. What's left is what works. You understand, I said carefully, that what works for human warfare may not be appropriate for galactic conflicts. Do we? Nina leaned back in her chair. Commander, you asked earlier about our wars, about how we fight. Here's the thing about human military history. We don't fight for territory, or resources, or because someone insulted our honor. We fight because someone decided we shouldn't exist anymore. The Nazis wanted to exterminate entire populations. The nuclear wars were about survival of the species. Even our ancient wars were about civilizations that would enslave or destroy the losers. So, we learned, Tom continued, that when you fight to end the fight. Not to win points, not to look good. You fight until the other side can't fight anymore. Most species in the galaxy, I said, have never faced extinction. Yeah, Jack said quietly. We noticed. You all fight like you're going to get a rematch. Like there's a referee who'll stop things if they get too rough. Humans fight like we're never going to get another chance. Is that why you break every rule? Rules are for people who can afford to lose, Nina said. We never could. I thought about that for a long moment. Thought about my 300 cycles of teaching proper military doctrine to species who'd never had to face total annihilation. Species who could afford to fight honorably because they'd never encountered an enemy that wanted them completely erased. What do you actually want to learn here? I asked finally. They looked at each other. Some kind of silent communication passed between them. How to fight the way you fight, Jack said. The coordination, the logistics, the combined arms strategies. We're good at small unit tactics, at survival, at ending fights. But if we're going to be part of the galactic community, we need to understand how to integrate with non-human forces, how to operate at scales bigger than we're used to. You want to learn our methods so you can break them more effectively. Tom grinned. Commander, we want to learn your methods so when something comes along that wants to break them, we know how to stop it. Graduation came. 27 cadets stood in formation representing their species with pride. The Krell Honor-born received the Crimson Star for exceptional combat performance. Civics earned the Tactical Excellence Medal. The Minari Cadet got the Humanitarian Service Award for their medical corps work. When I reached the humans, I hesitated. They hadn't earned top marks in any traditional category. Their formation drill was adequate at best. Their adherence to protocols was laughable. Their respect for military convention was essentially non-existent. But I'd watched them turn impossible scenarios into victories. Watch them adapt and overcome when every advantage was stripped away. Watch them fight with a ferocity and intelligence that made 300 cycles of military experience feel inadequate. Jack Reeves, Nina Cross, Tom Brightwell, I announced. For services rendered in expanding our understanding of alternative combat methodologies, and for demonstrating that sometimes survival matters more than style, you are awarded the instructor's recognition for unconventional excellence. It was an award I'd invented specifically for them, because no existing commendation covered what they were. They accepted with typical human informality, shaking my hand instead of the proper salute. Commander, Jack said quietly, thank you for not giving up on us. I did give up on you, I admitted. Several times. You just refused to fail. Yeah, Nina grinned. We're annoying like that. As they walked away, I heard Tom say 20 credits says within 5 cycles they're teaching our methods in the advanced courses. Sucker bet. Jack replied. Give it 3 cycles. I'm writing this addendum to the official Academy records because I believe future instructors need to understand what happened here. The humans didn't fail our program. Our program failed to recognize what they were. We teach warfare as an art. Humans know it as a necessity. We train soldiers to fight well. Humans train to survive at any cost. We have the luxury of honor because our wars are political. Human wars have always been existential. I've recommended that future human cadets be placed in a specialized track, not because they're inferior but because they're operating on entirely different principles than the rest of the galaxy. The Assembly wanted humans integrated into galactic military standards. I fear we may have misunderstood the assignment. You can't integrate a species that spent its entire existence fighting for survival into a military culture built on mutual respect and shared conventions. You can only hope that when something truly dangerous comes along, something that doesn't care about honor or rules or proper military conduct, You have humans on your side. Because while we trained our cadets to win battles, humans trained to end wars, and that I've learned is a very different thing. The lesson was simple and terrifying. Civilizations that fight for pride learn how to win battles. Civilizations that fight for survival learn how to end wars. And the galaxy had just met a species that never forgot why it fights.